Good morning.
Good morning.
How do y'all feel this morning?
Good.
I'm going to ask that after the lesson. See what questions are. This is a great day. This is an awesome day. I have a great subject, but I want to start in an odd place. Kind of like me. Open the Bible, if you will, to Romans chapter 1. Let's see here. I believe I want to start at about verse 18. I'm going to back up to verse 16. For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God to salvation for everyone who believes, for the Jew first, and also for the Greek. For in it the righteousness of God is revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who suppress the truth in unrighteousness, because what may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has shown it to them. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Because although they knew God, they did not glorify him as God, nor were thankful, but became futile in their thoughts, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Professing to be wise, they became fools, and changed the glory of the incorruptible God into an image made like corruptible men, and birds, and four-footed animals, and creeping things. Therefore, God also gave them up to uncleanness in the lust of their hearts, to dishonor their bodies among themselves, who exchanged the truth of God for the lie, and worshiped and served the Creator, or the creature, rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this reason, God gave them up to vile passions. For even their women exchanged the natural use for what is against nature. Likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lust for one another, men with men, committing what is shameful, and receiving in themselves the penalty of their error, which was due. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a debased mind, to do those things which are not fitting, being filled with all unrighteousness, sexual immorality, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, evil-mindedness. They are whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, violent, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, undiscerning, untrustworthy, unloving, unforgiving, unmerciful, who, knowing the righteous judgment of God, that those who practice such things are deserving of death, not only do the same, but also approve of those who practice them. There's so many sermons just within that one text that I can't preach them all this morning. But I want to start here because I want to look at the society in which is being considered here. And I want to look at our society some 2,000 years later, and it's like looking into a mirror. What is the problem? How does one get from an acknowledgement of God, a confession of the fact that this very world, our very existence, is God-given and God-created, to a world and an understanding that we can just do whatever suits us and pleases us and makes us happy. If I like it, I'm going to do it. And don't you even dare to tell me I'm wrong. And don't you even dare to mention God. Because that's my right. And you cannot infringe upon my right. However, I get to do that because I get to proclaim these vile affections and all these evil things that are within my life and say, here it is. Deal with it. But don't tell me about God. You know, when I was driving a truck one time, I got a guy, one of my trainers, really mad at me one time. He was, as soon as he found out I had been a preacher, he started on it. Oh, you can't talk about this, you can't do this, you can't do this. And all he's doing, he's talking about all these things he loved, just vile, nasty things. And I finally had to stop, and I said, why do you think you get to talk like you're talking now, but yet I can't mention to you about God? If you don't want to hear about God, then shut up. Because the more you go on with this, I'm going to start preaching. Got a real quiet like that. Do you remember the story? I don't really want to use the word story. What we have is recorded for us by God. When God sent Moses to Egypt, and he brought by Moses Israel out of bondage with all of his might and power. There's so many amazing things that kind of skip over our heads sometimes, I think. Because we weren't there. We can read it, but the reality, and even for the people there's proof of what I'm going to say. Even for the people that were living it in the day, they did not understand. They could not perceive. And folks, these are people who saw the power of God, who heard it, who felt it, who witnessed it, its very existence, in a profound way. And still struggle with this thing we're talking about this morning. With all they saw, from the devastation of Egypt to the salvation of Israel, through the Red Sea, through the fiery pillar, through the cloud, all these things that were before them continually every day. Do you remember the response, the incredible response that still, I can't talk today, still speaks wonders to us today when they get to Mount Sinai and the incredible reaction when God spoke on that mountain and the fear that instilled in the hearts of those that heard. The reaction was, we can't be here. We don't want to address God. You go for us. You go. The fear. They acknowledged it's hard for you and I to imagine that level of power. To try to walk away with a concept and an understanding of the majesty of God Himself. Israel did that day. And it terrified them. Now we look at this example and we see within our world the very same things. And it stems from this very same reason. As this cycle from Mount Sinai, this acknowledgement, the reality that sets in, the fear, to a point where this same people have to wander in the wilderness for 40 years because of their complacency. We see this played out throughout history countless times, where they get so far away from God, so corrupt in their thoughts and in their actions. God, finally, from time to time, He would pull them back in. I want to share with you one of my absolute favorite texts. I have a lot of absolute favorite texts. But I want to look over in Isaiah, and you'll see why this is incredibly special to, and probably, no doubt, is to any gospel preacher. Isaiah chapter 6. And if you're wondering, I'm reading through foggy glasses, so my vision's not so good this morning. In chapter 6, in verse 1, in the year that King Uzzah died, I saw the Lord sitting on a throne, high and lifted up, and the train of His robe filled the temple. Above it stood seraphim. Each one had 6 wings. With 2 He covered His face. With 2 He covered His feet. And with 2 He flew. And one cried to another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of His glory. And the posts of the door were shaken by the voice of Him who cried out, and the house was filled with smoke. So I said, Woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of the people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. Then one of the seraphim flew to me, having in his hand a live coal, which he had taken with tongs from the altar. And he touched my mouth with it and said, Behold, this has touched your lips. Your iniquity is taken away, and your sin purged. I also heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send? And who will go for us? Then I said, Here am I, send me. And He said, Go and tell this people. Keep on hearing, but do not understand. Keep on seeing, but do not perceive. Make this heart of this people dull. And you can go on and on and on, but the gist of this is He talks about the people who have seen time and time and time again, who have seen and did not see, who heard and did not hear. All of these wonderful powers, all the majesty, all of the God which God allowed them to witness, that was available for them to see and to glorify and to honor God, they had turned their backs upon. Isaiah lived in an evil day. Their king dies. And with that king's death, God reveals Himself yet once again, giving the people something to cling on to for real. Here I am. And Isaiah's reaction is overwhelming in that, who am I? Can you imagine seeing such a vision as that? And being put in a place and feeling in such a profound way that we can only try to imagine in our wildest imagination what that must have been like for Isaiah. Having come out of his world, living in his world, and seeing this vision of holiness. Such power, such magnificence, that when the seraphim spoke, things trembled. Folks, if there's that much power in the created things, what happens when God speaks? We are blessed in so many ways to have these witnesses, to have these testimonies, because we know for a fact within our own world, the moment we go outside of this building, the moment we go downtown, the moment we turn on our television, the radio, it's all around us. The world has left God behind. And we see here, this book proves it, folks. Every time with no exception. When people did that, that's the way the world went. You know, folks, you gotta love God. What do you do with a God who loves us so much that He keeps pulling us back, saying, here I am, who gives us such a witness all around us? You know why He placed it all around us? Because there's evil all around us. And He gives us this witness. He gives us these testimonies. He gives us these proofs so that we may always make the right choice. Folks, when we come in here and we worship, we must not be like Israel. The times that they came to worship and sacrificed to Jehovah, and then went and did horrible evil in the worship of idols, to the point of even destroying their own children in the worship of Baal. How do you get there, folks? How do you get there? How do you bridge that gap from holiness, from God on His throne, looking down, reaching out to us, and people turning their backs on Him and choosing the life that they have chosen? It starts from seeing and not seeing. It starts from hearing and not hearing. It starts from closing our minds and our thoughts and not acknowledging God. We know this because of the evidence that is here, but also the Apostle Paul, when he wrote to the Romans, he said because they knew God. They knew God. The power of Him was all around them, but they chose. They chose to not acknowledge God. Folks, when we come here to worship, we acknowledge God. When we come, and I know people have, and I know just from my own experiences and conversations honest conversations I've had with people, the complacency that we as people have to continually fight against. I think I've told you about this book, and I've mentioned it, I think, many times in my preaching career. The Cruciform Church. I don't remember who wrote it. Couldn't even tell you that if my life depended on it. But that's what this is really about. The Cruciform Church. You know what the book is really written about? It's written about worldliness settling inside the church. The way that we approach God today, with all of the surrounding influences that are on us, and how hard it is that if we're not careful, we fail to shrug those things off. And then we come in here and we sing our songs and we partake of the Lord's Supper and we pray and we do this and we do that, because it's like this is what we do on Sunday, and it must never be that. Do you know when we prepare for Sunday morning worship? Now. And I'm not talking about this Sunday. I'm talking about next Sunday. I'm talking about every single day of our lives. I'm talking about a lifestyle that allows us to be so magnificently grateful, profoundly grateful, that we carry throughout our life the respect, the honor, and the glory that is due a Creator such as ours. And when we come in to sing songs of praise, to glorify our Creator, to glorify by the blood of Jesus Christ our Heavenly Father, to praise His name, to honor Him, to give Him due respect. It is not something we do by rote, because this is Sunday morning at 10 o'clock, and this is what we do on Sunday morning at 10 o'clock. And that's a hard influence for any of us to fight, 100% of the time. There are many times, no doubt, when we go through our lives, I can look back at my own life, and I can see times where that's gotten a little bit slack. We all go through periods in our lives where we're very profoundly reminded of these things, and we're very humble. But we have to be careful, all of us, to not become complacent to what we're doing. To not become complacent before who we appear. God, I was talking to, by the way, thank you for the songs. I was talking to Butch before the lesson, and I asked him if he knew the song, "The Lord is in His holy temple." I love that song, very short song. And no, I won't do it to you. I won't read it for you. I'm mean, but I'm not that mean. But read that song. Hey, I want to remember for correct remembering this. It's page 34 in your song books. The Lord, folks, is in His holy temple. Do you know where the Lord always is? He's in His holy temple. When we come before Him, He's in His holy temple. When we go to work, He's in His holy temple. Wherever we are, He's in His holy temple. When we come before Him to worship, He is in His holy temple. And when we come to worship Him, we need to remember that. Not come in unprepared. This is what we do. This is what I'm going to do now. Sing the songs. With this going on in our mind and that going on in our mind, I think it's happened to maybe all of us. Maybe not. I'm not the judge. But sometimes the world gets pretty heavy on our shoulders. And we need to remember these very basic things. See, once again, you've got to love God, because He brings it to a point that we can never forget. We don't need to forget. Let me put it that way. We have to work hard at forgetting, because His majesty, His power surrounds us. I had a beautiful text I wanted to read in Psalms, but I'm out of time. Read Psalms 139. goes into more of what I'm talking about. Let me read just one more text in Revelation chapter 4, verse 9. Wherever the living creatures give glory and honor and thanks to him who sits on the throne, who lives forever and ever. The 24 elders fall down before him who sit on the throne and worship him who lives forever and ever. You know, that's mentioned twice in that one text. Our God, my God, your God, lives forever and ever. And they cast their crowns before the throne, saying, You are worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power. For you created all things, and by your will they exist and were created. Even the elders before the throne fall themselves down and throw their crowns before the throne in honor. That's the respect. That's the acknowledgement. That's reality, folks. That's reality. That's real. That's their acknowledgement of who sits on the throne. And that's the only kind of acknowledgement that must be presented when we worship him who sits on the throne. If you need help in remembering who God is, maybe you don't know God. Maybe you don't know just who he really is. Maybe we need to be reminded, whatever the case may be, from this moment on, let us fight hard to never forget who he is that we come before to worship.